a job, raised a family, and paid off your mortgage. And retirement's 3 or 4 years away. And you finally sit down and look at the numbers, and you see you have saved only $90,000. This story isn't rare. And for millions of Americans, there's a common thread here. There's no plan in place. All right, man, we're going to talk about the cost of winging it.
Yep.
Right? The cost of procrastination, right? A stick in the mud. And, that's the killer of almost anything, right? And sometimes, we've said it, in our educational classes, like, sometimes just making a decision, even if it's the wrong decision, can get you sometimes on the right path.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? Unless you just pick something and you lose all your money, like, or you make a completely catastrophic decision.
Yep.
All right. But it may cause you to like, oh, that's not the path. This is actually the path. But sitting there and going nowhere, you're stuck in neutral is not going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. That is probably the one, anecdote or story or whatever you want to call it, that is just so true. Just taking that first step and getting started, no matter what that first step is, really, as long as you take that first step, you're on the path to success.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, I guess let's kind of start off like, why do people, avoid planning?
Yep.
So one of it is, it's too far away. Hey, I'm in my 30s. I'm in my 40s. I mean, I'm still a decade away. I'm 2 decades away. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Right. So we have that. So it's overwhelming, right? Because there's a lot of buzzwords in our industry, right? Asset allocation, modern portfolio theory, required minimum distributions, Social Security. How the heck does that work? You name it. IRAs, Roth IRAs, non-qualified accounts, cost. I mean, I can go on and on and on, right? So it is overwhelming. But then that's why, seeking help and understanding what your goals are. But again, that's why people don't plan. Like this is where you can mess up. Early decisions can be so impactful down the road, positive and negative, or sure. Lack thereof, planning, right? Again, I kind of mentioned in this, like, I'm 1 to 2 decades away. Like, I'm just going to save my money and just keep on chugging along. And there's merit to that. At least you're saving, but like having a game plan. Are you saving enough?
Right.
Is always a good one. And mortality. Having a morbid mindset. Like, man, I got to start planning for my death.
Yep.
I mean, I don't look at it that way. I'm like, man, how much can I start spending, get away with it before I die, so I can enjoy it, right? Or if I want to create a legacy plan, like what can I set aside and how do I live my life on the rest of the money, right? So,
there's no getting around that one, right? If you're putting a financial plan together, at some point you're going to have to talk about the end of it.
I mean, I know when we build plans, we have people, living till age 95, right. And people start looking at me like, are you kidding me? Exactly. I ain't living to 95, right? But, advancements in medical and stuff, but that's definitely a thing, right? I never really looked at it that way. Yeah. I didn't look at
really?
it. No, not really, like planning my demise. Like I never really thought of it like that. But
it's you're never really talking about the end of your life in like conversation, really, other than the financial plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. It's like, well, you got to end it somehow, and you can't end it too soon. So you got to make sure you have, enough if you make it that far. Which today's numbers, if you're a married person, there's a pretty good chance that one of you will make it that far.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like a 50% chance that one of you makes it to age 80 or something like that.
Yeah, and that number's got to be going up.
Yep, I agree. All right, so with that, moving on to like the next part of it, then is, what does retirement really cost, right? And it could start to become overwhelming as we start rattling off some of these items, right? So why don't you dig into like the actual costs of retirement planning?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's, we just hit, that's a perfect segue. We really just hit on it. We have to make sure that if we're coming up with a plan for your retirement, that it has longevity covered. So, a lot of, like we just said, at least one person is going to last until age 95. So we have to make sure that the costs associated with those years are in the financial plan. And that's where, when you're running these financial plans, you see a lot of them, they're kind of okay, but it's a lower Monte Carlo number, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But it's like the last 4 or 5 years that aren't funded. It's not necessarily the whole retirement. So that gives us a window and to figure out, hey, well, we're pretty close here. What can we do now to adjust to make sure that the plan lasts throughout, for your whole life?
Yep. So yeah, longevity is got to be planned for. Income replacement rule, right? What do they kind of call that? The rule of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Between 3 to 5% distributions.
Yeah.
So income replacement rule. So just how do you? There's so many ways to do this, but it all depends on your risk tolerance, their lack of. You can create lifetime income through annuities. You can create income through covered call strategies, dividend strategies. You could just think about growth strategies,
yep.
right? Like picking stocks that grow. You could be a laddered bond strategist, right? Like you can literally go and buy bonds and clip your coupons and move on. Definitely not sexy, but there's several different ways there. Healthcare. Statistics tell us that a 65-year-old couple can spend nearly $300,000 on healthcare during their retirement. Now, if we break that down and say, okay, you're going to live to 90, 300,000 divided by 25 years is $12,000 a year. I don't know, 300 sounds like a high number, but 12 grand doesn't.
Right.
Because if we then take a look at maybe what somebody's making in Social Security, they're making maybe 24,000, right? So 12,000, 24. So maybe your Social Security is like that conduit to help start paying off, like to pay down the healthcare costs,
yep.
right? Inflation, that's the thing, not a lot of people understand. And then when you start kicking around numbers saying, hey, it's 2025 or 2026, and in about 25 years, what you spend $50,000 today is going to cost you $100,000.
Yep.
So the rule of 72 divided by an interest rate, so 3% inflation is 24 years, right? So that's a little, I guess a nice simple way to get to how long it's going to take for your money to double. Well, how about this? All right, stay with me here.
Okay.
When you retire, you cannot buy a mattress and shove your money into it. Okay, let's think about that, because if you would have stayed invested over the last 25 years, you would have made 9%. I don't know about you. The arbitrage seems like it's there.
Yep.
9% is greater than 3. I don't know. Just saying. I'm not a math major over here. I've been through calculus 1, 2, and 3, but 9 is greater than 3. So that's the thing. Like getting conservative in retirement, there's merit to that, but not get a mattress and go into CD hunting and things
yep.
like that. You will struggle to survive because you're just keeping up with costs.
Yep, exactly.
So anything, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like these hidden costs, or quote unquote hidden costs, or costs maybe people don't think about when they're starting on their retirement journey. Like this is exactly why you start planning early, so you recognize, hey, it's not just going to be my vacations and my restaurant bills when I'm in retirement. There's a lot more to it than that. There's going to be healthcare costs. There's going to be inflation that those costs are going to go up over time. These are kind of the basic building blocks of a financial plan, and why we keep harping on them month after month here, because they are very important. And when even we talked about pre-show today, when there's a lot going on in the world, right? There's turbulent times in the market.
Yeah.
That the market is going to be what the market is. There's a whole lot of other things that we can plan for to make our retirement successful.
Yeah. During this, like the Iranian conflict, getting some phone, hey guys, what are you guys doing? Well, transition to like overweight energy and things like that. We're kind of premeditated. We're like, okay, well, if this kicks off, it's gonna, who knows how long it's gonna last. And then look at today as we're recording the show. The United States and Iran came up with a ceasefire, and markets are down, markets are up, energy's down, and here comes all the risk assets. Bitcoin's up, gold's up, all the AI stocks, all the small caps, here they come, right?
Yep.
So again, staying invested is so important during all kinds of weather. Just think about setting aside 1 year of an emergency fund. Like, what's the cost? Well, selling low, to generate income, if your accounts are down, that's detrimental to your portfolio. So be careful with that. And also, one more thing, I know we need to move on to the next segment, but and I've heard this from a couple people, like, hey, Tony, I need $1 to $1.5 million to retire. And I'm like, who told you that? I'm like, I read some article. And I'm like, well, what's the background on the person that needs that amount of money? I don't know. That's just what the experts say. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw out my hands right now. But think about this. You and I have built hundreds and presented hundreds of financial plans. When somebody walks in and they show me their financial statements, their confidential profile, like, I'll be honest, man, like, I've seen so many plans. I can't just say, like, yeah, you're going to be good. Like, I'm not a computer, right? But I can tell what's going on in a sense. But the program, the software that we use is so important, because I have seen, somebody with $500,000 have a very, very successful retirement. I have seen people with $3 million have catastrophic, a catastrophic retirement, because what are you spending? What's your lifestyle? What's your, do you live within your means, or do you just, hey, like, market keeps on going up, I'll keep on spending it. The mentality is huge. So I need $1 million to retire. Like, it's BS, man. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
Because it's all about who you are. And that's what we have to capture and put into the planning software.
Yep, absolutely.
All
right. You can't lie to yourself on who you are when you're about to retire. You got to make sure that your lifestyle is covered, or it's not going to go well.
No. And so, kind of just a quick case study here. So let's call this person David. He's 58 years old, earns $75,000 a year. And he's getting serious about retirement one day, now at the ripe age of 58 years old, right? So, all right, it's on his mind now, but he's only saved $110,000. Okay, and his plan loosely is to just get to 65 and turn on Social Security and live on whatever he saved. Well, now that I always say that the most important part of the entire financial plan is your budget. What are you spending? Because if that's garbage, if you don't know what you're spending, like that is the most important number. Because if I put in a number and it's too light and you're actually spending more, all these recommendations are off. Right? I'd rather you lowball it, right? But David, he's spending $55,000 a year, and Social Security is going to kick him about $22,000. So he's got a deficit now of like $28,000. Right. 27, 28 a year. Correct. And he's 58, wants to 65. So his 110 might grow to 150, 160 grand.
Right.
We are running a deficit. If we ran those numbers into a planning software, he'd run out of money within 3 to 4 years. That's a big problem. Right. And so that is the problem. He's going to run out of money before age 70. In that scenario. Now, if David would have gave it some thought, maybe a decade or two earlier, and somewhere in his 40s, would have saved, we'll just say a number, 10 to 12% of his salary. He would have nearly $600,000 at age 65 versus $150,000. It's a big deal. That's the procrastination thing. We talked about it before. That is the biggest issue. So it's never too late to save. It truly isn't, right? So now when we start pulling in and taking 4% or 5% distributions from $600,000 to stay within that, the rule of 4, right? The distribution rate, between 3 and 5%. we're a lot closer. He's a lot closer to 50 grand of, between Social Security and in the distribution rule.
Yep.
So he's slightly over. Now there's some real planning. Be like, hey, maybe you should consider working a couple more years, and then you don't have to sacrifice.
Yep.
Right? Because you're not dipping into your retirement account, or you spend less. Like, the plan is going to give you at least the optionality. Save more, work longer, spend less. Those are the keys if your plan is borderline.
Yep.
Right?
And even if you are David and you are starting later, that plan will basically give you the targets that you need to get to where you want to go. So, that's probably a pretty good segue into, what a plan actually does for you.
Right.
It gives you a target. So even if you're behind and you're 58, you can still have a target. Like, I didn't do those things in my 40s, but here's what I want to get to. What do I need to do to make that happen?
Right.
And it shows you the gaps, right? It's like, hey, well, if I'm spending X, I need Y in my retirement savings, and I don't have that. So what do I need to get in my retirement savings to hit the numbers in my plan?
Right, because we might design a plan where it's like, hey, if you cut down your spending and save it, so like, hey, David, you're spending 55 grand a year, right? And so what is that? Let's just call that $4,500 a month. Roughly, that's probably a little bit more or something like that. But $4,500, be like, hey man, if you spend $4,300 a month, right, and you save that extra $200 or get down to 42, like, I don't know, man. I'm sure a lot of people can find $200 to $300 a month out of their, everything you're doing to save it.
Yep.
And if you do that earlier, it is such a big deal.
Absolutely.
So
it also gives you a budget too that you can work off of, right? So when you're getting it down that fine in the details, and you're finding that extra $200, you also have a really good idea of what you're spending, so you can put that into the plan and have that as the goal in the future. An accurate spending number is a huge important part of the plan.
Right. So I think that's revealing the gaps early.
Yep.
Gives you, it's like steering a cruise liner, right? Yep. It doesn't turn on a dime. Well, maybe with some of these jet propulsion things they got on the sides, maybe they do spin around in circles, but a long time ago, they had rudders, man, and they didn't have these thrusters, and you had to plan how to get into the channel miles away, or you're going to miss it. So same thing there.
Actually, the cruise ship that I went on,
did it fly? Was it flying?
No, but it does. There's a documentary on Disney Plus if you want to watch how it was built. It's pretty wild how
really?
How technologically advanced they are now. Yeah, it's crazy. Good stuff.
That does kind of turn my dial. I'm gonna go look that up and watch that. So
the making of the Wish, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, the new boats are pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, then prepare for the unexpected. Always healthcare crisis. So market downturns. Like some of the plans that we build now is like, hey, market's been really good the last several years, and I'm 2 or 3 years away from retirement. What if it goes down the day I retire? So we build bear market scenarios. Yep. Like, can you sustain that, right? And then it just gives you clarity, a crystal ball into the future, a blueprint for me to help you. Reduces anxiety. Those are all the big things what a plan actually does.
Yep, absolutely.
Peace of mind. So, all right, man. With that being said, as we wrap up the show before we get into our masters picks, step one. I don't know. Some people check their 401ks and stuff periodically. Some don't. So if you haven't, log in, check it out. What's going on? I hope you haven't been sitting in cash. For beginners, this stuff is just too much for me. I don't know what I'm doing. They make it kind of easy for you. They make some target funds. I'm not the biggest fan of them. The way they allocate the funds and the allocations can be underwhelming sometimes. So, maybe you can identify the best funds in your 401k plan. If you're more sophisticated, you can maybe even have a brokerage link where you open a link to a part in, maybe let's just call Fidelity or Schwab, to move a portion of your 401k over there, and you can pick your own stocks. If you're a novice, don't do this because you might get your teeth kicked in, and that's irreversible. And if all three of these things are just too much, professional management. I have so many friends that just kind of call me and say, like, hey, can you just take a look at my 401k and help me with the asset allocation and the best funds? Yep. I don't want to say it's not that hard because it's just what we do every day. But like that's what I do. Hey, when my plumbing and electrical goes out, like I ain't doing that stuff. That's Sputnik to me, man. I don't know what the hell that stuff is. Yep. My basement will be with a foot of water in the basement if I grab a wrench and start working on a pipe underneath the sink. Then if you've never done this and you're still like, well, this resonates a little bit. I mean, they have calculators all over the internet. You get what you pay for. I've done those, and I'm like, how in the hell is this going to tell me I'm going to make it or not when I spent literally 2 minutes in it? Yep. Our plans take 6 to 8 hours because we're putting intricate details in there. But if you've never done this and you still think it's like, the path is too far away, those calculators, they can get you a general idea. Mm-hmm. And then just book a conversation, whether you talk to a certified financial planner, CFP, maybe the guy that delivers the donuts every quarter talking about the new funds in the 401k. Maybe he knows something about something. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, like a trustworthy friend that does understand this, that might be in the industry, that can spend 10, 15, 20 minutes taking a look at everything and helping you out. Or you just talk to somebody who's in the industry to really help you out. So
for sure.
Yep.
Sometimes we say it's like, booking a doctor's visit. You might not want to do it at first. It might be a painful thought to think about, but after you get diagnosed and get put onto a plan, it actually reduces your anxiety and it shows you exactly what you need to do.
Yep.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.